the drive. Tatum the finish. It is Baylor 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell here with another episode of You Got Boston, live from San Antonio, where the Celtics just beat the San Antonio Spurs 121-111 to go 5-0 on their road trip. They're now 55-19. And I remember when we were not sure if they were going to get to 40-20, which is a rule that many people subscribe to that believe you have to get to 40 wins before you get to 20 losses. They're still not at 20 losses. They're now 55-19. They've won 15 of their last 16 road games. This is 8 wins in a row, and we're now looking at just 4 games between the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed, between the Cavs and the Celtics. Never would have thought the 1 seed would even be in play. The Cavs have lost 5 of 8, and they just look like they're really struggling down the stretch here, falling to sub-500 teams. They're probably still going to run out of time. There's probably not enough time to go for that number 1 seed, but it's encouraging that the Celtics are playing some of their best basketball of the season at the right time. Earlier in the year, when we heard from Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown and other guys who just weren't worried about the fact that they weren't necessarily playing their best basketball in December and January, they said, we just want to click at the right time. And I think what we're seeing right now is a Celtics team that is clicking at the right time and is just playing good basketball. I like the ball movement tonight. I think in general, the fact that they found ways to win in different environments with different guys in and out of the lineup. This is not a great San Antonio team. They're playing without De'Aaron Fox, no Victor Wembanyama, their 2 best players, both with season-ending injuries. And even still, I think that they came out. They were very competitive. Chris Paul had some vintage points there in the fourth quarter. It was really fun to watch that. They have some young, talented, hungry players, Jeremy Sochan, Stephon Castle. I liked what I saw out of that team. I think they played hard. They tested the Celtics, and the Celtics were ultimately able to respond and play really well down the stretch. Luke Kornet is my biggest takeaway from this story, just a massive performance from him. 16 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds, 15 points on 7 of 10 shooting, plus 21 for the night. So he played 31 minutes, was a plus 21. Nobody else in the Celtics was better than a plus 14. And that was Jrue Holiday, who also had a great game. Jrue Holiday, his 3rd highest scoring game of the season. He finishes with 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3, 6 assists and 6 rebounds, 0 turnovers for him. Just a really good game. He's been dealing with his mallet finger for a while. He spoke to us about it extensively post-game and was kind of showing us he just can't move the pinky finger. He can't take that out. He's not moving it even when he's around the house. He can't move his pinky finger. So effectively, he's operating like he only has those 4 fingers, and it doesn't seem to be impacting him too much. I think he's gotten used to it. I don't know that he's going to have the mallet finger tape through the entirety of the postseason, but it certainly seems like it's something that has a couple more weeks left in his trajectory. He said today that right now if he took it out and bent his finger, he'd have to restart it, and it's a 6-week process. But Jrue Holiday, another good game for him. Jayson Tatum is also a big story here. Everybody was super worried about him after he sprained his ankle in the Sacramento game. Almost played in Phoenix, which was pretty stunning. Nobody expected that, but he went through his full shoot-around routine, went through his full kind of everything pregame, all that, and was questionable, was upgraded from doubtful to questionable after going through shoot-around. Ultimately held out of that one, but it was no surprise that he was able to play on Saturday against the Spurs, and he wasn't even on the injury report, so there was never really a question about whether or not he was going to play. And he has a great game, 29 points on 10 of 22 shooting, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. Just the playmaking has just been awesome. I think you're regularly seeing him flirting with the 30-10-10 stat line, which is just not the kind of stat lines that he was flirting with a couple years ago. And the assist is the biggest category that you're just seeing a big jump there. And just it's beyond even what shows up on the box score. I think you're just seeing that his feel for the game has really increased. His playmaking, his connection with individual guys, like he mentioned post-game, that his connection with Luke has been something that's really stood out. So I think you're seeing that play out. Like some of the playmaking leap is not just his own, passing improving and his own court vision improving, but it's also the product of individual connections and individual on-court chemistry. And, there's so much synergy with this team. Everybody's back from last season. The only new guy that's in the mix is Baylor Scheierman. So, individual 2-man actions are getting better and better. And Tatum and Luke have like the second best pick and roll in the NBA. And he alluded to it today post-game. So those are the biggest headliners. I think Jayson Tatum, Jrue Holiday, and Luke Kornet, those are the three guys that we spoke to post-game. Typically, we speak to the guys that have the best performances, and I think you saw all three of those guys really kind of shoulder a big load in the win. And again, these games don't necessarily matter, but I asked Joe Mazzulla about kind of why they continue to prioritize winning, which is obviously it's kind of a stupid question, but it just kind of is remarkable that last year in March, they were really, really winning, going on road trips, beating everybody. They're 13-1 in March this year. There's no feeling of they're taking their foot off the gas. And I think that's part of why I had a lot of faith in them going into the playoffs last year, that they weren't coasting into the playoffs. They had this idea of every night we're going to achieve a specific measurable target. I don't know what their thing was tonight. Tatum said post-game, we have things that we work on every single game right now, and it's just about us and ourselves. Something I noticed, and I'm not going to try to guess what their thing was, but a lot of cutting, especially in the first half, which they're not a huge cutting team. So maybe that was a directive or something that they were going to try to work on. So again, they have the opportunity to close out this road trip 6-0. They're heading to Memphis on Monday to face a Grizzlies team that just lost their head coach, Taylor Jenkins, who was very surprisingly fired as far as just the timing of things, just a couple weeks before the playoffs. I know to people in and around Memphis, it wasn't too much of a surprise because there were a lot of issues or complaints or concerns with his coaching style. So in the offense they ran and all that. So we'll be up close and personal with all that on Monday, but they have the opportunity here to go to 56-19. They have the opportunity to close out this road trip 6-0, and they have been historically dominant on the road. They've now won 15 of their last 16 games on the road. So as we talk about the playoffs and we talk about their ability to potentially win on the road, maybe they don't have home court advantage in the conference finals and the finals if it ends up being a Cleveland Thunder path. You have to feel good about the fact that this team has been really, really good on the road. And it's not just this season. It's just been over the past few years. I look back at the Miami 2023 series, and it felt like they were better on the road, and they were better on the road that year. Last year, they had a historically good year at home during the regular season. But in general, they didn't go to 6 games for a single playoff series last year. That's because they're good at home and on the road. And that's part of the good thing with having a veteran team with guys that have been there before. So they're not going to be scared to play any games at another team's territory. And, during the regular season, I think they do benefit from having Celtics fans all over the place. Spurs, shout out to them. One of the better arenas that I've been in as far as the home crowd just being super boisterous. I felt like they were locked into this game despite the fact that San Antonio is not in a great place right now. They're 31-42. Their star player, Wemby, everybody was so excited about them making the playoffs, and everything kind of went to the side when he had his shoulder blood clot that nobody expected, and then De'Aaron Fox has a season-ending surgery. So you would think there'd be maybe a half-empty arena or people not being super engaged, but that was not the case. So shout out to the Spurs. They were down by 16 at one point, and I felt like the fans never wavered and helped make this a good game. They really did. And there were a ton of Celtics fans here. But even still, it felt like there was just a ton of energy in the building, which you don't always feel with these, sub-500 teams in late March. So that was a fun kind of wrinkle to this one. And definitely something that I noticed that's just been different than some of those other teams that you see this time of year. So I think the only potentially concerning thing here, or my main concern for this team heading into the postseason, we'll say that, is just Jaylen Brown potentially playing through a knee injury that was deemed a bone bruise with posterior impingement in his right knee. We haven't gotten a lot of details about it. I don't really know if it's something that is expected to get better. I can just say what Jaylen said after the Phoenix game, and that's that he hasn't dealt with knee injuries before. He doesn't feel 100% right now. There's a mental / confidence aspect that he's trying to align everything because he's not used to playing like this. And he said himself that he expects to kind of have to play through this heading into the playoffs. And so the reason I brought this up a couple times, on our post-game show, on the Garden Report, and just in general, I do think that there's an element here that matters because of how important Jaylen is. Finals MVP last year, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, second leading scorer, primary defender, on-star player. It's I don't need to go into why Jaylen matters, right? But I think ultimately, you do recognize the fact that he's not somebody that regularly has to play through injuries, right? He said it himself. He's never dealt with knee things before. He doesn't usually miss extended time. He's already had a season he's had more issues than previously, whether it's the knee, he had the shoulder, the hip, a bunch of different various ailments that have hurt him. But at the same time, this feels different. This started before the All-Star break. He missed a couple of games before the All-Star break for this, came back, missed a couple of games. He at one point missed 4 of 5 games, but he's seemingly back in the lineup. I know there's been a lot of speculation about whether he's in the lineup because he wants to hit the 65 game minimum to be able to be eligible for All-NBA, which again, I don't know if he would make All-NBA. I think he's kind of on the fringe right now. There are a lot of guys that are not eligible because of the injury limit. So the games threshold minimum, which probably should be a little bit lower because you don't want to disqualify all the guys that have had great years. But tonight, I think his box score doesn't look terrible. I'm looking here. He had 14 points on 6 of 9 shooting. 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, was a +1 in his just under 30 minutes. Didn't close the game out. They closed with Luke, and that might be if part of that is just the fact that Luke was playing awesome and they wanted to close that double big. Part of that is probably he hit his minutes restriction and they weren't going to force it for a game that they had under control. I don't know if Joe wanted to close with him but didn't because of the minutes thing, or if he would have kind of gone to that lineup regardless. But Jaylen, the stats don't look bad, but I think anybody that watched him, you can tell he's playing through pain. You can tell he's hobbled. He had a fall early in the game where he kind of laid there for a while, and even just getting up looked kind of painful. And that's the reality of kind of his situation right now, is that this is something that he's dealing with, and we don't really know if it's expected to get better. We don't really know if him playing through it is bad. I asked Joe about this process, and he said, you trust him, you trust the sports science team, you trust the trainers, you trust him taking care of the body, and he's doing everything he can to be available, and he takes pride in that. And I totally believe that. I totally think everything we know about Jaylen is that he's doing everything he can to be available, that he takes pride in it. He said it himself, that it's important for him to play through the stretch heading into the playoffs for his rhythm, for just kind of the way that he likes to do things. And again, I just don't know if it's making things worse, and we can speculate, and I honestly won't speculate because I'm not a medical professional, and there are people that on the staff that clearly have cleared him to play. And so I'm just going to take it for what it is and just assume that it's not making things worse and that it's something that he just has to deal with. And people that have had bone bruises to various degrees can say whether or not that was their experience. I've had bone bruises that did not get better regardless of how much I rested. I've had bone bruises that I felt like I was making them worse because of the impact. So I don't know. I don't know what the case is here. But I do believe that there's a mental aspect of playing through injury that he's kind of working through right now that might trump rest, honestly, because you don't want to sit out a couple weeks, come into the playoffs, feel rusty, feel out of rhythm, and then still have the bone bruise, right? That's a reality that he could be dealing with too. And so, again, there are guys on this team that have played through lots of different injuries and come back from extended stays and extended absences. And the main one I'm thinking about is Kristaps Porzingis, who we at this point I continue to be in disbelief with how he comes back from multi-week absences and just seems to be, or multi-month absences in some cases, and just seems to be completely himself. And I think the reality is that it's more normal and it's more expected to look like how Jaylen's looked when he comes back from a week absence and to look a little bit rustier, to look like you're dealing a little bit with kind of working through the pain and everything. So I don't know that it's a huge, monumental issue, but you can tell that he's in pain, and it's not very often that you watch a player play through visible pain in the NBA. I think usually teams are super precautious about that and want to make sure that they're not putting anybody in a dangerous situation. And that's why I don't think they are putting him in a dangerous situation, but it's just an unusual sight. And I see a lot of people talking about it online, wondering if he's okay, if it's bad that he's playing, and wondering if it's just because of All-NBA. So we won't know for sure. Nobody's going to confirm or deny that. But I don't think that, if I had to guess right now, I don't think it's an All-NBA thing. I think it's more of just the mental side and him wanting to kind of be able to play through that and be able to be available for the team and kind of get into a good flow heading into the playoffs. And hopefully he gets some rest on the stretch. He can miss 2 games still, so he can still rest 2 games and hit that 65-game mark. Maybe if he plays exactly 65 games, that'll be more likely that he was trying to hit that. Maybe he'll end up playing 64 anyways, or he'll play 67, and then we'll say, this really wasn't about that. So we'll see, but I think that's the biggest thing, that if you're a Celtics fan monitoring this team heading into April, it's almost my only concern, because everybody else is looking really good right now, and he hasn't played bad. I think he's doing his best to play through this, but it's just clear that he's bothered by it, and that's just notable. The same way that we were thinking, if Jayson Tatum was going to be bothered by the ankle, that was going to be a big story. That was going to be something to monitor, but he looks to be fine, and I think he averted like a real ankle sprain, and that it was more of an initial scare. He said afterwards that he heard a pop, and that kind of scared him. By the time he was able to walk off, he kind of realized he was going to be fine.
Prizepicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. Prizepicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Prizepicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prizepicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prizepicks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. This week on Prizepicks, I'm looking at the basketball board and I'm selecting Jayson Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25 points. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game.
So looking beyond just Jaylen and the injury, and it's definitely something that we'll keep our eye on as this road trip comes to a close in Memphis, as they come back home for a couple of games, and as they hit the road again to go to New York and Orlando and just down the stretch here for the season, is just the bench play. Peyton Pritchard sits out of this one with a hip strain. I don't think it's anything overly serious. He doesn't miss a lot of games, but he has been listed on the injury report for this a couple of times, and I've seen him wincing a couple of times on the court, so I think that's what it is. Although we didn't hear from him specifically today, but he went through his pregame stuff. His shoot-around work. He was at shoot-around as usual. Al Horford was also out with his toe sprain, which I don't want to say that's like a made-up injury, but that's what he always gets listed as for back-to-back. So I don't think it's something particularly concerning. I think they probably just wanted to give him the night off. There's no real reason for Al to be playing a ton of minutes right now. And while this wasn't a back-to-back or anything, they do have another game on Monday. So he'll probably play on Monday. Maybe KP will sit. Who knows? But Al and Peyton are the two guys that are not in the lineup today. Instead, you see Luke Kornet play 31 minutes, and I mentioned just an awesome, awesome game by him. I asked him about kind of the process to becoming a more physical player because everybody asks, he's the guy. I think he still holds this record for most three-pointers made by a 7-footer in NCAA history throughout a college career. I don't know if he still holds it, but he held it not too long ago. I expect that to be broken soon. But Luke has totally changed his game to be kind of a bruising, big, very physical player. As I mentioned, 7 offensive rebounds in this one. One of the best offensive rebounders out there, really, right now. He's been his timing is great, his instincts are great. And I asked him post game about what that process has been like, and he said, there really is. It's been an adjustment for him just as far as how he sees the game, what he's looking for when he's out there. There's also been the weight room side. There's been embracing the contact. He credited Emile Jefferson, one of the Celtics assistant coaches, a good friend of Jayson Tatum's former teammate at Duke. Shout out Duke, who advanced to the men's Final Four today. But yeah, I think you're just seeing a lot of, interest and excitement and just he's embracing this style of play, and for good reason, because it's working. It's contributing. He's becoming a really great basketball player. And as in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know how they're going to be able to keep him next year, but he's totally evolved from somebody that people were not sure about, and somebody who was almost out of the NBA to a really legitimate, one of the best backup bigs out there, and maybe even a starting caliber big on a lot of teams, honestly, because he's such a connector on the floor. He sets great screens. He's a great rebounder. He's a great passer. Like he just does all the little things out there. 4 assists tonight. So he just, that lineup with him in the starters, which is what they closed with tonight, really good lineup. He played double big with KP. Like you look at that and you're like, there's so much offensive firepower in that starting group that they prefer with KP and Tatum and Brown and Jrue and Derek, that sometimes when they put in Al or they put in Luke or they put in Sam, like you have a more connective pieces, guys that don't necessarily demand the ball. Like I think that they benefit a little bit from that. So Luke, shout out to him. Shout out to Sam Hauser, who was shooting really well through the month of March, had a tough game tonight, 3 of 11 from 3, kind of put his hands up in hallelujah when he finally hit one. But overall, Sam's back to shooting 41% from 3 on the season. I wrote a story about him, interviewed his mom. You can check that out on Celtics blog. And she was telling me that really he just doesn't care about stats. He never has. He doesn't care about whether he gets his touches, his looks. He just wants to win, and I think that's what's made him really effective on a team filled with stars, which is what the Celtics team is. So Sam Hauser plays 24 minutes tonight, doesn't have his best shooting night, but I think you're able to kind of just see that it always balances out for him. So I don't even really look at the individual games anymore. Big picture, this is as consistent of a shooter as you're going to find in the NBA. That's the reality. I say this literally all the time. Sorry to be a broken record, but when a guy has never shot below 40% from three, that is as consistent as it gets. And these games get balanced out by the 8 of 10 nights that he had not too long ago. So that's Sam Hauser for you. And then the big question is, no Peyton Pritchard. Who's going to play those bench minutes instead of him? And there's a pretty clear guy now that's established himself as that guy coming off the bench that can play make, that can do a little bit of everything. That's Baylor Scheierman, who played 19 minutes. He shoots 2 of 4 from the field, all 3-pointers, finishes with 7 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Nothing crazy, but again, I just like the way that he plays. He plays like a veteran player. He doesn't play like a rookie. Part of that is that he is a little bit older. I think he's 23, 24 now. And part of it is that he used to be a point guard. He used to be a quarterback. You can see that he's really comfortable with the ball in his hand. He's really comfortable making plays. He plays with a level of swag. He plays with a confidence that is just so fun to watch. And I still, if I had to put money on it right now, I don't think he's going to be playing postseason minutes. At least not a lot of postseason minutes, but it's on the table now. It really is on the table because you're seeing him play a bigger role than I expected. They were relatively healthy tonight. The only difference is no Peyton and no Al. And he still got 19 minutes. And so he seems like the next guy. If there's going to be another guy besides that trio off the bench that we all know, Sam, Luke, and Peyton, that have now played together for years, Baylor is starting to kind of creep into that group. Torrey Craig, a lot of people thought maybe he was going to be playing playoff minutes. Anything can happen. I think he's been good in his minutes. He's shooting 40% from 3 on the season. He's come in and played with a lot of energy. I caught up with him at shoot-around today. He said this experience has been everything that he's wanted and more. He's loving being around the winning culture. The biggest adjustment has kind of been the defensive side and just learning all the schemes, learning to just the systems and everything. And Joe praised him pregame for how he's been able to come in and adjust and learn everything. So we'll kind of see how everything goes. If Torrey does play some role in the playoffs. Right now, though, a couple weeks ago, I would have said Torrey has a more likely chance to play in the playoffs. Right now, I think it's Baylor Scheierman, just because of how we're seeing him play down the stretch here in March. This has been a huge March for him. He's probably never going to forget this month. I think this is the month that he really became an NBA player and showed that his game does translate to the pros. So be on the lookout for a Torrey Craig story that should be out on Monday, and also be on the lookout for a J.D. Davison story that should be out on Tuesday. J.D. Davison, Maine Celtics playoffs begin on Tuesday. For those of you that follow me, know that I love the Maine Celtics. I love covering that team. I love the G League. I love just kind of how the developmental stuff carries over. And some people think it's stupid. Some people think it doesn't matter. But if you see Baylor Scheierman, I was writing about Baylor Scheierman in the fall. I was going up to Maine and covering him, and now he's relevant, right? So you never know who's next up. Baylor, obviously, first-round draft pick. It was, he wasn't on a two-way. He was on, on a guaranteed deal. Like there was a pathway to why he was potentially going to play those heavier minutes or play a bigger role in the future. J.D. Davison, two-way player, his third two-way. Been dominating up in Maine. I asked Jrue Holiday about it. He said he's an NBA player. So you can check out J.D. Davison's story. Will be out on Tuesday. Maine Celtics playoffs tip-off in Portland on Tuesday as well. So lots of fun stuff coming up here. Celtics road trip ends on Monday. They'll be back in Boston for a game on Wednesday against the Phoenix Suns. And Jayson Tatum will get a chance to play against Kevin Durant, most likely, unless he gets arrested or one of them gets arrested. I doubt that will be the case. So I'll just say closing thoughts here just from being in San Antonio, just because I'm here. A couple things. One, Celtics locker room notes, really funny, just seeing March Madness in the background here. Pre-game, Al Horford was sitting in the other room watching the Florida Gators advance to the Final Four, and he was just so locked in, was kind of joking. He wasn't playing in this game, so he's kind of joking that the guys didn't want the game. In the main room, he was sitting in the little side room to the locker room watching it. So a lot of fun March Madness storylines. Jayson Tatum was watching Duke advance the Final Four post-game. So the schedule kind of lined up with Al's game being pregame, Tatum's game being postgame, and just seeing their alma maters. And so that's kind of the nature of the NBA, is that so many of these guys have allegiances and are just super committed to certain teams advancing. So that was just happening in the backdrop of this game. And then just big San Antonio observation. I've never been to the city before. Most of the cities that I've been to in the last couple months are places that I've been to before for my previous job, which was in lobbying, where I traveled to different cities and talked to legislators and all that. So I'd never been to San Antonio before. It's not a capital city. And I've loved San Antonio. So I don't know if you guys have been there before. I would encourage, if you haven't and you want to make a fun trip somewhere random down the road, it's a cool place to visit. The Riverwalk is just super vibrant, lots of restaurant, bars, just a river cutting through the entire city. I've never really seen anything like it. It was a very unique atmosphere. It wasn't just the river too. Like I walked down the downtown, there's a lot of stuff to see, a lot of good food. So that's going to be my surprise city of the year that I ended up liking a lot more than I expected. I tend to like the kind of these random cities, but I thought San Antonio was awesome, and I didn't hear great things going into it, so I had very low expectations. So Phoenix I'd been to once before. Phoenix is great as well. Both cities were a little bit too hot. Like, I hate to say that because coming from Boston, I was seeking out the heat. But definitely shout out to San Antonio, just the atmosphere. I met a ton of Celtics fans, both in the building, outside of the building. You could tell a lot of people traveled here to watch this game. Hopefully they enjoyed what they saw. They saw another win on the road. You can kind of come to expect those, as I mentioned, 15 and 16 games. And so fun city, fun road trip so far. This is my second game of the trip. I joined the team in Phoenix, caught them there, caught them here in San Antonio. I do notebooks after every game, so if you want to read the written version of kind of what I said, and plus there's quotes and videos and things like that, you can check that out on Celtics blog. And then if you don't follow me on Twitter, feel free to do that as well. You can watch post-game press conference videos, all that stuff. I try to upload as much content from being on the ground so you can kind of follow along in the journey there as well. So this is the You Got Boston podcast. You can listen to this on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, all that. I think a lot of you actually do. I didn't realize a lot of people actually listen to this on Spotify and Apple. I usually just check the YouTube numbers, but I recently got those. So shout out to all of you listening as well. And as I mentioned, I'm going to do these everywhere I go on the road. So I'll have another podcast after Memphis. When I'm not at a game, I don't usually do one because I don't have as much to say. I like to be able to kind of share the perspective from actually being here on the ground. And I feel really lucky to be on the ground. There are not a lot of reporters that are here. So it's a lot of fun to be able to kind of see up close what's going on, catch the vibe of the atmosphere and everything. We only got a couple of games left until the playoffs start. So thanks for following along. Subscribe to You Got Boston podcast on YouTube if you haven't already. Subscribe to CLNS Media if you want to see some of the post-game press conferences and all that. And enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for watching.